My 17-year-old daughter came home pregnant. And my wife already knew. Not suspected. Not had a feeling. Knew. That's the part that shattered me. Because while I stood there frozen in our kitchen trying to understand why my daughter was crying, my wife avoided eye contact like someone caught hiding a body. And the worst part? Neither of them wanted to tell me who the father was. There are certain moments in life where your role inside your own family suddenly changes. One sentence. One secret. One look across a dinner table. And you realize everybody's been living in a different reality than you. That night, I stopped feeling like a father. I started feeling like the last person invited into the truth. And trust me, the truth turned out uglier than I ever imagined. My name is Conrad Bellamy. 45 years old. Own a small auto restoration shop outside Tulsa. Quiet life. Quiet neighborhood. Quiet family. At least that's what I thought. My wife Lenora worked nights as a pediatric nurse. Smart woman. Calm under pressure. The type who handled emergencies without raising her voice. Then there was our daughter, Sienna. 17. Honor roll student. Soccer captain. The kind of kid other parents used as an example. If somebody told me 2 years earlier that our family would eventually collapse over secrets and lies, I would have laughed in their face. Not because we were perfect. Because we were predictable. And predictable families rarely think disaster belongs to them. The night everything changed started completely normal. Football game on TV. Rain outside. Takeout containers scattered across the kitchen island. Lenora kept checking her phone every few minutes. At first I thought she was dealing with hospital stuff. Then around 9:40 p.m., headlights swept across the driveway. Front door opened. And Sienna walked inside crying. Not dramatic crying. Silent crying. The dangerous kind. Mascara smeared. Hands shaking. Hoodie soaked from rain. Immediately every parental instinct inside me activated at once. I stood up fast. Sienna? What happened? She looked directly at her mother first. Not me. Her mother. And in that exact second, something inside my chest tightened. Because parents recognize guilt before words arrive. Lenora stood slowly from the counter. Like she already knew what was coming. Then Sienna whispered. I can't hide it anymore. I remember looking between them completely confused. Hide what? Nobody answered immediately. And silence inside families is terrifying once you realize it contains information. Then finally Sienna said it. I'm pregnant. Everything after that moment blurred for a few seconds. Not because I was angry. Because my brain physically struggled to catch up. Pregnant? My daughter? 17? I looked at Lenora instinctively expecting shock. But instead, she looked sad. Prepared. And that's when I realized. You knew. Not a question. A statement. Lenora closed her eyes briefly. Conrad. You knew? Sienna started crying harder immediately. Lenora stepped toward me carefully. She told me 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. 3 entire weeks. Family dinners. Movie nights. Breakfast conversations. And the whole time they were hiding something life-changing from me. I felt stupid. That's the honest truth. Not furious at first. Stupid. Like everybody else received the script except me. I asked the obvious question next. Who's the father? Silence. Sienna looked down instantly. Lenora looked terrified. That reaction alone scared me more than the pregnancy. Because suddenly my imagination started creating possibilities. Teacher? Coach? Older guy? Then Sienna whispered. You know him. Those two words changed the atmosphere in the room immediately. My heartbeat actually sped up. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table because suddenly my legs felt weak. Who? Again. Silence. Then Lenora quietly said. Conrad. Please stay calm. No sentence in human history has ever successfully calmed anybody. Finally, Sienna looked at me with tears running down her face and said, It's Adrian. I stared at her blankly. Adrian. Adrian Mercer. 22-year-old mechanic from my shop. Worked with me almost 3 years. Quiet kid. Hard worker. Good with engines. I trusted him. Hell, I treated him like family sometimes. He spent Thanksgiving at our house last year. And suddenly every memory involving him became contaminated instantly. How long? Sienna wiped her face, shaking. Since spring. Spring. 7 months. My wife knew for 3 weeks. My employee hid it for 7 months. My daughter lived terrified under my roof the entire time. And somehow I was the only person completely blind. I left the house that night around midnight because honestly, I couldn't breathe inside it anymore. I drove aimlessly through empty roads while rain hammered the windshield. And somewhere during that drive, one thought kept repeating in my head. How did I miss this? Parents always think they'll notice everything. But children grow up quietly while you're busy surviving adulthood. Work. Bills. Stress. You convince yourself everybody's okay because routine still exists. Meanwhile, entire secret lives develop right beside you. The next morning I went straight to the shop. Adrian was already there underneath a lifted Camaro when I walked in. The second he saw my face, he knew. You could literally watch fear enter his body. I told the other employees to take early lunch. Then the garage became silent except for rain hitting the metal roof. Adrian kept trying to speak. I raised my hand. One question. That's my daughter? He nodded slowly. Man. There's a different kind of rage that appears when betrayal enters fatherhood. Not screaming rage. Protective rage. Animal rage. I wanted to break his jaw. Instead, I asked, Did you touch her before she turned 17? That question nearly made him sick. No. I swear. Honestly? That mattered more than anything else in that moment. Then Adrian admitted something unexpected. He wanted to tell me months earlier. Lenora stopped him. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Because suddenly the betrayal expanded again. My wife wasn't just hiding the pregnancy. She was managing the entire situation behind my back. Appointments. Conversations. Plans. I asked why. And Adrian answered quietly. She thought you'd hate Sienna. That hurt. Deeply. Because maybe I'd been stricter than I realized. Maybe harder to approach emotionally. But the idea my daughter feared me enough to hide something this huge? That broke something inside me. That evening I finally sat alone with Sienna on the back porch. Cold air. Crickets. Complete silence between us for almost a minute. Then I asked softly, "Why didn't you come to me?" She started crying again immediately. "I thought you'd stop loving me." Man. No parent survives hearing that sentence unchanged. I moved beside her slowly and said, "You made a mistake. A huge one. But nothing on this planet could make me stop loving you." She collapsed into my chest crying like she was 6 years old again. And honestly, that's when my anger finally cracked open enough for reality to enter. Because suddenly she wasn't a pregnant teenager. She was still my little girl. Terrified. Ashamed. Lost. Over the following weeks, our family transformed completely. Doctor appointments. Arguments. Awkward conversations about future plans. Lenora and I fought constantly at first. Not because of the pregnancy. Because of the secrecy. One night I finally asked her, "Why didn't you trust me?" She looked exhausted. "Because your anger scares people sometimes." That sentence forced me to confront uncomfortable truths. I never hit anyone. Never abused my family. But I was intense. Loud. Controlling during stress. The type who solved problems by overpowering them. And somewhere along the line, my family stopped seeing me as safe during emotional crises. That realization hurt worse than betrayal. Because intentions don't matter much once fear becomes real. Then came another twist none of us expected. Adrian's parents showed up at our house unannounced one Sunday afternoon. I expected denial. Excuses. Chaos. Instead, his father shook my hand and said, "We're here because responsibility matters." That sentence changed everything. Turns out Adrian had already told them months earlier. He'd been secretly saving money for the baby while trying to figure out how to face me. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I saw genuine fear in him. Not fear of consequences. Fear of failing my daughter. That mattered. A lot. Sienna gave birth the following summer to a little girl named Ivy. Tiny thing. Dark hair. Strong lungs. The first time I held her in the hospital, something strange happened. All the anger. All the humiliation. All the disappointment. None of it mattered for a few minutes. Because life has a terrifying way of continuing forward no matter how messy people become. Sienna looked exhausted in that hospital bed. Still basically a kid herself. And quietly she whispered, "Dad, thank you for staying." I squeezed her hand and answered honestly, "There was never a version of this story where I leave you. Things aren't perfect now. Probably never will be completely. Lenora and I still carry scars from that year. Sienna and Adrian are trying to figure out adulthood faster than most people should have to. But they're trying. And sometimes trying matters more than perfection. A few months ago, little Ivy grabbed my finger for the first time while sitting in my workshop office. And suddenly I realized something important. Families don't survive because people avoid mistakes. They survive because somebody chooses to stay after the mistakes happen. So if you're listening right now, let me ask you something honestly. Could you forgive your family for hiding something this big from you? Or would the secrecy hurt more than the truth itself? And if stories like this keep you hooked, messy family drama, emotional twists, realistic human mistakes, you already know what to do. Stick around. Because sometimes the hardest part of being a parent is realizing your children were scared to need you.